It's very interesting right now just how many people feel that something's coming. I mean, we feel like just like Sarah Connor here at the end of the Terminator movie. It's just like something in the horizon is coming, and it's not like one famous dude is out there saying the end of the world's coming or anything like that. It's not like there's some preachers picking a date right now. That's the routine looming doom is that there's a date and this is going to happen and get ready, and it never happens and everybody's like sick and tired of it. And I'll admit I haven't been listening to anything or really researching that from other people right now because I don't want to hear what others have to say, but I can't even escape it, and I'm just trying to tread water here and make my own little world keep going. And people around me, just everyday normal people, are sharing with me these dreams that they're having, these very prophetic dreams. All of this weird, crazy stuff is just coming out. And without a doubt, I don't think anybody out there can deny that the world globally is just moving into a phase that we've just never seen anything like it before. And there's this general feeling that something is coming. Now, in the world of biblical studies, back in the late 80s and early 90s, when I was a Bible major, I was never encouraged by professors to get too wrapped up in eschatology of end times. And the reason for that was that it seemed to be almost anti-intellectual to gravitate towards that stuff. This was like the stuff that your little cults would cling to, and sensationalism, and it just was not proper to spend too much time worrying about things that were obviously meant to be very cryptic and was probably not happening in our lifetime anyway. But to take the Revelations and Book of Daniel and all these experiences and see how they can apply to our life in our time right now. So people in the college were like saying, don't get too wrapped up with this, even though, there's also this understanding, many groups saying, this could happen in our lifetime and this is how these things could roll out. The thing that I kind of wish that I had studied it more because I'd be a little more up on what was said now, but I've been going back and reading the book of Daniel and Revelations a few just over and over and making notes of things and what kind of big events might be happening. And in the last few years, I do feel like we've seen the sign of the dragon and the woman giving birth in the stars. I think that one's come about perfectly. Also, the blood moons, the series of blood moons has come about perfectly. There's been a lot of mystical experiences that I've had and seen signs and wonders and the division of the wheat and the tares and all of these mind-blowing events that are so freaking esoteric. My professors would be just rolling their eyes or rolling over in their graves if they're not alive right now. They would just not believe the stuff that's happened to me and that I've shared has happened with y'all. But it all started September 23rd, 2016. And now since then, we see the world changing to where things like this is becoming a standard. This is coming. It really does feel that way. And what else is coming? This is definitely starting to roll out heavily. And we know from the book of Revelations that something like this is incorporated because it says you're not going to be able to buy or sell unless you go along with it. Now, I don't know exactly how this incorporates with the definition and interpretation of worship, but it is true that along with the financial system and the buying and the selling and being able to participate in society, that this thing is going to be an element of worship. The verses say, causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast. I mean, it's all, there's worship, 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 ascribing worth to, pledging allegiance to. Have you ever, those of you who are in the know, I know a lot of people aren't going to get it, but those of you who have been watching the symbolism of allegiance that comes through music and movies and entertainment and through our media and sometimes through news, that they flash symbols. I believe they're flashing symbols of allegiance. They might be flashing symbols for witchcraft purposes. I'm not fully sure why they do it, but I cannot watch a movie without picking up. Almost every single major movie has got a reference to their allegiance, and they're these symbols that they use over and over and over. And you're familiar with them. You know what I'm talking about. Anybody listening to me, certainly you know. But is that a form of worship? These symbols that they take upon themselves, and they pump the public up. They pump us with these symbols over and over and over. And I'm just wondering if this act is going to have a symbolic reference, which means, yes, we are following that system and we are worshiping that beast. I don't know. I'm still, to me, it feels like it's going to be a little bit more than that. I feel like that beast mark is going to be an acknowledgement of an angst against God, against Jesus, against all of that there's a definite stand that you're making against God. I just don't see people unknowingly, of course maybe, but I just don't see it. But we see the rise of a beast right now. And the major players, I truly believe, if these prophecies that are thousands of years old are talking about the time we're in right now, I think they'd be talking about major players like the UN. They'd be talking about the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church. And, some of the things that we should look for. It's interesting, if you go into the Bible and read Revelations, the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord sounds a lot like an asteroid coming to hit Earth. I mean, it just does, because even biblically speaking, Jesus is described as the stone or the rock that is going to strike the feet. It's going to crush the feet of this statue that represents, well, I believe the clay and the iron are a mixture of the Roman Empire, which is the iron, and the clay of the papacy. And that's the Holy Roman Empire that extended after the collapse of just Rome by itself, which was the iron legs. And then before that, you have the belly of brass, which is Greece, and you've got the Medes and the Persians, which were the silver arms. And then you've got the head of gold, which is Babylon. This is a 2,500-year-old dream that was canonized, documented, well established. Nobody added this in after the fact. And then these events rolled out. It's remarkable when you look at that. In addition to the return of Jesus coming back like a rock to strike the feet of the whole system of man. I mean, the statue represents all of the control grid governments, the global control, which was trying to get established. And Satan would be the prince of power behind all of that. And then you've got Jesus described like this stone coming back at the end times for the day of the Lord. And then you've also got this wormwood thing in the Bible, talking like a stone coming back to strike the earth. So it's like a dualistic. That's what I find remarkable about the Bible, is so many things that are ascribed to God and to God's people are also almost copycat version of that exist for Satan. So many times, it's just amazing. So wormwood might be this Apophis, and Apophis is the name of the evil serpent god. And this is just an artist rendition of Apophis. Apophis is coming back as the evil serpent god to strike the earth, and he's got the pyramids and the obelisks in the background. It's like this dualistic thing coming. So the Apophis, by the way, if you don't know, it's coming on Friday the 13th. Remember the movies, the horror movies of Friday the 13th, associated with bad luck and all that? It's so funny. It lands on that day. Its weight and dimensions and all that has a lot of 666 in it. Just a coincidence, I'm sure. But it's coming. We know the date that's coming. We don't know the day of the Lord. And the Bible says you're not going to know the day or the hour. But you do know the date that this thing's coming. So when the Bible talks about wormwood, which is another end times catastrophe, one wonders if Apophis is wormwood too. You know the day and the hour on that. Another thing interesting is this thing with, I don't know if I can find it right. This thing with timelines is interesting because we have in the Bible this end times in Revelations is a 7-year period, Hebrew calendar, 360 days a year date. And it describes the beginning of the tribulation as kind of a setting up or ramping up process where things are getting in place. And then the last half of the tribulation is the great tribulation. And that's where the harshness of the world, the seals, the punishments, this is where the plagues, all of that starts getting rolled out in the last 1,260 days. Now, if you take the day Apophis gets here, which is going to be a rock bigger than the Eiffel Tower that flies so close it's underneath our satellites, you'll be able to see it with your naked eye going across the sky, they say. So this thing's coming on that day. 1,260 days is what the Bible says, and the Bible specifically says 1,260 days, but it also refers, it's very cryptic because it refers to a week and 7 days being 7 years, but then it says 1,260 days. But coincidentally, or symbolically, or whatever you want to call it, if you backdate Apophis's arrival to Earth 1,260 days back, you get 2025 Halloween. Another great scary movie. You got Halloween in the beginning, and you got Friday the 13th at the end, and 1,260 days of hell on earth in between. Just saying, if that happens to be the time. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that's just amazing that's a 1,260 day separation. And if this is all coming about like that, I would look for some major events to happen sometime in the year 2025. 2025 is going to be a year to watch. I think 2025 might be a year to watch for this for sure. Absolutely globally rolled out and required. 2025 might be a year to look for that. This is already rolling out full steam. And when it comes to this whole agenda of control, this New World Order, the thing that's rolling out, biblically speaking, we know that the mark of the beast is going to require that you join it, or you cannot buy or sell. You cannot participate in society. You cannot be a member of that. So that's why people are concerned about what's rolling out right now globally and amazed that that is happening. But at the same time, a big element to this whole thing is worship. The mark isn't just about economic control or medical body control or just tyranny of governments or control, taking away your freedoms. The mark of the beast has to do with a worship of it. And that worship also means that you are standing in direct opposition and direct angst against Jesus as Lord. You are taking a stance, and I have to believe that people would understand that's what they're doing, that you're making it. But then there's false Christ that will arrive. So it's possible that our idea of what Jesus truly is going to be supplanted with a new concept, a false Christ, and people will think that they're Christians. People will think that they're following the Lord. People will think that this program being rolled out is of God and they're going to worship it. Possibly. I'm just saying how this all might come about. So many times with God, it seems, we have an idea of what might be happening, but then when it happens, it's kind of different from what anybody expected. It's always just like a good book. You read a good book, you don't see the ending until you get to the ending. Then you get to the end, it's like, oh, there's clues the whole time. This thing was getting foreshadowed. I think with the world, we might be getting this foreshadowing of events, but not fully grasping its meaning. But the everyday people that are just reporting to me their dreams and visions and uneasiness about what's coming, I can't escape it. I mean, it just, even trying to not think about it, it's just everywhere right now. There's a general feeling of people reporting this stuff. Now, back in rereading the book of Daniel and Revelations and knowing what people are saying are clues and signs of what we should look for. A lot of people believe that Israel needs to have a peace treaty with the world for 7 years. That's going to be like the mark of, that's going to be like a timestamp. This is like, you're moving into the 7-year trib if you see this contract, this peace agreement with Israel. But that is taken from this verse, this one verse in Daniel, and I'm just going to take it right out of the Hebrew translation. And remember, all the ands, thes, and buts, they're kind of a little subject to interpretation too. There's a lot of gray area when it comes to this. So we're jumping to a lot of conclusions about what this might mean. But what it actually says is, he shall confirm a covenant or a contract or a peace agreement, whatever you might call it, with many. It just says with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he will bring an end to the sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, and even until the consummation, and which is determined, is poured out on the desolate. Now keep in mind, this verse is linked to a lot of other verses in the Bible, in the New Testament, where the Bible's talking about these end time events, and it ties in the abomination of desolation. It ties in the worship, the sacrifice, all of the 7 years, the 1 week standing for 7 years. It defines that. The 1,260 days is mentioned specifically for that 3.5 year periods of time. So this is what it says. Now, a covenant could be something as simple as an agreement that the world leaders have made to move in a certain direction. And keep in mind that two big players, if this is the time that the Bible's talking about, two big players would certainly be the UN and the Roman Catholic Church. And they have made an agreement in mid-November of this year, of 2021. They've made a big agreement, a covenant that lasts exactly 7 years. And it's an agenda covenant for the New World Order eventually, but it's wrapped up with climate and environmentalism, the Great Reset of 2020. All of that stuff is just a repeat of stuff they've said in the past, and they're rolling it out inch by inch, step by step. That just keeps getting closer and closer to their global end goal. This possibly could have that 7-year indicator. Another interesting thing about Apophis is that when Apophis gets here, they say there's this chance that it might hit the gravitational pull of the Earth. Slim, very slim chance. It could hit this gravitational pull just right, so that exactly 7 years to the day, Julian calendar, 7 years to the day, it comes back and strikes the Earth for sure. It's just interesting how 7's coming up. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't mean that that's the period of tribulation. It doesn't mean that the arrival of Apophis is the end of the tribulation. I'm just noting some interesting dates. The thing that's the most substantial to me, and the thing that I would look for in 2025, is that rollout of global mandate. You can't buy or sell, absolute. I mean, all of it's ramping up to that right now. But that's what I think we need to try and fight against if we think there's any hope. I just don't know. I just feel like Sarah here. This storm is coming. I can't even think about it anymore. But the people around, even when I'm not thinking about it, they share these dreams that are somewhat disturbing. A recent dream that I had was that I was actually on the Titanic, and it was going down. I knew it was going down. No one around me seemed to care. No one even seemed to realize that we hit an iceberg. No one. It was just, they were oblivious. And, I was just like the movie where, they're running around, scurrying around the top of the deck trying to find a way off. But in reality, I'm pretty small potatoes. I'd be locked down below with everybody else. And sometimes I think the best that we can do is just try and comfort our loved ones. Like that lady who was reading the bedtime story to her children, and you can see the water starting to come in and rising at her feet. I don't know, something about that image in that movie that troubled me. That struck me deep, because there's nothing, she can't get out. She knows she's locked in. The best thing she can do is just comfort her loved ones. That's it. That's it. And I'm like, that's where I think I'm at right now. The warning time is useless. I mean, it just doesn't even matter anymore. You can warn all day long. Nobody's going to take any steps to get out. We can't even get out. I'm just trying to comfort my loved ones. And death, if you truly, have faith that Jesus did what he says he did, death really has no sting. It's just a quick transition, and then it's so much better. So that's that's what I'm holding on to right now. I don't have any life bolt. I don't have any life jacket. This is just comfort everybody around me and read the bedtime story. And we'll see how correct I am if 2025 is the year that this really gets established or not. If it is, if this happens, I would say that's definitely a sign that we're right in the middle. And somehow this thing gets tied to worship, just like every single thing that the music industry puts out and the entertainment industry and movies and everything, that just constantly, they give you symbols and signs that are the same symbols, the same signs, and they're all Luciferian. They're all flashing their allegiance. And I think this thing's going to have that allegiance to that system tied into it, and some sort of knowledge that you are turning your back on the true Lord and taking on this false Lord and this false system. That's how I see it. There's a million interpretations on how this stuff happens and what the Bible says. I can tell you that too. Very interesting to watch it all happen. And focus, I would just say right now, my focus, if there's anything we can do to prepare, and if there's anything the Bible really pushes you to do to prepare for this type of time, is really protect your heart and really protect that love and kindness towards others, because as that stuff starts to get darker, as the days get darker, those things will be more and more difficult to find. And you don't want to lose that in your own heart. Go right up to the end with the maximum amount of love and kindness that you can produce for others. That's my end time strategy right now.